Live to 100, by drinking oil every day. Sounds like a joke, doesn't it? But in the hills of southern Italy, that's exactly what one man did. And not just any man, a scientist. A rebel. A man the world nearly forgot. Dr. Ancel Keys. He wasn't chasing immortality. He was chasing answers. In the 1950s, while America was frying bacon and praising margarine, Keys was sitting at a wooden table with farmers. He watched 90-year-olds eat bread dipped in extra virgin olive oil, laugh with missing teeth, and carry firewood like teenagers. He didn't just study them. He lived with them. He ate what they ate. And slowly, he realized, their longevity wasn't luck. It was a ritual. 2 tablespoons of olive oil every day. Raw. Unfiltered. Bitter and bold. Taken like medicine. But treated like gold. I used to laugh at things like this. My father died of a heart attack at 64. My brother had a stroke at 58. So I spent years cutting fat, reading labels, fearing butter, fearing oil, fearing flavor. And yet, there I was. 76 years old. Sitting in the doctor's office. Blood pressure is creeping up. Cholesterol is like a ticking time bomb. You might want to start preparing, the doctor said. Prepare for what? To be another number. Another man in a gown, hooked to a machine, asking why he didn't act sooner. That night, I couldn't sleep. I looked through old books and old notes. And there he was again. Dr. Keys. The man who challenged the world's idea of fat. Who said, it's not fat that kills. It's what kind of fat. And how you live with it. That's when I knew, this wasn't just about oil. It was about a man, a movement, and a message we forgot. And that's where I want to take you next. To the olive groves of southern Italy, to meet the man who lived to 100, not by accident, but by design. His name was Dr. Ancel Keys. A scientist. A pioneer. A rebel. Born in 1904 in Colorado Springs, trained at Harvard and the University of Minnesota. He was the man who connected fat, food, and heart disease long before anyone else did. But he didn't stop in the lab. In the 1950s, he packed up, left the US, and moved to a small village in southern Italy. A place called Piapi. There, he lived among fishermen, farmers, and widows in their 90s. People who ate bread soaked in olive oil. Who had wine with lunch. Who walked every day. And who almost never died of heart disease. No heart attacks. No strokes. No obesity. No diabetes. Not by miracle. But by ritual. He didn't just study them. He lived with them for decades. He walked their roads. Ate their meals. Shared their laughter. And then, he wrote. The 7 Countries Study. A 20-year project tracking over 12,000 men across Europe, Asia, and the US. His findings would change the world. The Mediterranean diet. A way of living. Not just eating, that could reduce heart disease by over 40%. Dr. Keys lived what he preached. He was born in Italy. He walked every morning. He poured 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil over his food, every day. And when he passed away in 2004, he was 100 years old. At home. Peacefully. No hospitals. No machines. And yet, almost no one talks about him. Not on TV. Not in clinics. Not in pharmacies. But my doctor. He did. Do you know Ancel Keys? He asked. That moment stopped me cold. I didn't. But I was about to learn. Because what Dr. Keys left behind. It wasn't just science. It was a map. And I was finally ready to follow it. It's funny, isn't it? How you can know what to do, and still not do it. Even after reading about Dr. Keys, even after watching elders in Italy thrive, I didn't change overnight. Because the truth is, we don't change when we know. We change when it hurts. For me, that pain came on a Tuesday. I was sorting the mail. Junk. Coupons. And one envelope, thicker than usual. From the lab. I opened it on the porch. Coffee in hand. Then I saw the numbers. LDL, 187. Triglycerides, 220. Blood pressure, 162/98. At first, I laughed. Tired machine, I muttered. Can't be right. But my wife didn't laugh. That afternoon, we booked an appointment. 3 days later, I was sitting across from Dr. Green. Calm. Focused. Firm. He tapped his pen against the folder and said, "Mr. Bennett, your heart is under siege." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He pulled out a chart, 2 arteries. One soft, wide, open. The other stiff, narrow, blocked with plaque. "That's your heart," he said, pointing to the second one. "Your arteries are hardening. Your blood is thick. Your heart is pushing harder than it should. You may feel fine today, but this path leads to a stroke. Or worse." The room went quiet. And suddenly, I remembered my brother. Collapsed in the shower. Never spoke the same again. I remembered my neighbor, jogging one day, wheelchair the next. I remembered my own cold feet. The dizzy mornings. The forgotten words. They weren't quirks. They were warnings. But here's what surprised me most. Dr. Green didn't reach for his prescription pad. He reached into a drawer. And pulled out a single page. A bold title at the top. Mediterranean Lifestyle Intervention, 30 days. And right below it, a quote in small print. "What you eat today, walks and talks tomorrow." Dr. Ancel Keys. He smiled. "Harold, you followed the rules your whole life. Low fat this. No oil. No yolks. And look where it's led. Let's try something different. Let's follow the man who lived to 100. Then he handed me a simple challenge. 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Every day. For 30 days. No pills. No side effects. Just food. Real food. That night, I couldn't sleep. But this time, it wasn't fear keeping me awake. It was a strange feeling I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Day 1. I stood in my kitchen, 7:03 a.m. Spoon in hand. Looking at a golden liquid I used to fear. Extra virgin olive oil. Raw. Bitter. Something I used to avoid, was now something I was trusting with my life. I closed my eyes. Lifted the spoon. And sipped. It felt strange. Like taking medicine, except this time, it wasn't out of fear. It was out of curiosity. And maybe, just maybe, hope. By day 3, it became a ritual. 1 tablespoon in the morning. 1 in the evening. I called it my reset button. Small. But sacred. I started tracking everything. Sleep. Digestion. Blood pressure. Mood. Even how cold my feet were cold in the morning. I didn't expect miracles. But I promised myself, 30 days. No excuses. Then things began to change. Week 1, my sleep got deeper. No more waking up 3 times a night. My mind felt quieter. Less restless. Week 2, digestion improved. No more bloating. My mornings felt lighter. And strangely enough, my appetite shrank. I felt full sooner. Week 3, the cold in my feet. Gone. That shocked me. I took a morning walk and realized I wasn't wearing socks. I hadn't done that in years. Week 4, the big one. My blood pressure dropped to 128/84, lowest in 2 years. Even my wife asked, "What are you doing differently?" I said, "Adding fat." And we both laughed. But here's the thing. It wasn't just olive oil. It was routine. Consistency. Belief in something natural, something ancient. And it turns out, this wasn't just old folk wisdom. Science backs it up. A Harvard study in 2021 showed replacing just 5 grams of butter or margarine daily with EVOO reduces risk of cardiovascular death by 15%. And the polyphenol in high-quality olive oil? They don't just reduce inflammation. They protect your blood vessels. They help your heart relax. That's not my opinion. That's research. That's real biology. Dr. Green checked in midway. He looked over my tracker and smiled. "You're doing more with 2 spoons than most people do with 10 pills. And I wasn't alone. I shared my progress in the Live Strong with Harold Facebook group. Dozens of people joined. Some skeptical. Some hopeful. All of us, just trying. Together. So I turned my tracker into a guide. Daily checklist. Blood pressure log. Meal ideas. Olive oil brands doctors trust. You can download it below. Because 2 spoons a day might just be the simplest prescription you'll ever try. And the one your heart never forgets. 4 weeks. 4 weeks of oil, of walks, of watching my blood pressure like a hawk. I filled a notebook. My spoon was stained gold. And still, part of me was unsure. Because of real change. It's easy to feel, but hard to prove. Until you're sitting in a waiting room. Holding your breath. That morning, I sat there, jittery like a schoolboy waiting for his final grade. Dr. Green walked in. Clipboard in hand. No smile. No small talk. He sat down. Started flipping through my chart. Then, a pause. His eyebrows lifted. Then came the words I'll never forget. "Harold, this is impressive." He turned the page and pointed. Blood pressure, 124/82. LDL cholesterol, down 32 points. Triglycerides, down 45 points. Inflammation markers, CRP, back in the optimal range. I blinked. "Wait, that's all from olive oil?" He chuckled. "Not just the oil. The consistency. The commitment. The belief." And then he added. "You've done more with one habit than many do with 10 medications." Then he showed me a research brief from the American Heart Association, 2023. Daily consumption of high polyphenol EVOO improves endothelial function, lowers blood pressure, and supports lipid balance. Even the oleocanthal in EVOO, he said, mimics ibuprofen's anti-inflammatory effects, without the side effects. Nature's pharmacy, in a spoon. Then came the surprise. He asked me to speak at the next community wellness workshop. People listen to science, he said, but they believe stories. And Harold, you've lived both. I'll be honest. That scared me more than the lab results. But I said yes. Because maybe my story isn't just mine anymore. I thought of my neighbor, taking blood pressure pills, and still tired. Of my friend Jim, skipping olive oil because it tasted weird. Of the thousands of you watching now, asking, can something this simple really make a difference? I don't have all the answers. But I do have a chart. A spoon. And a doctor who looked me in the eye and said, Whatever you're doing, keep going. It was a Thursday afternoon. The kind of quiet day when you clean drawers just to feel productive. I was looking for an old photo of my wife, when I found something I didn't expect. Tucked between two faded cookbooks was a printed letter. Dated 2002. The year Dr. Ancel Keys passed away, age of 100. It wasn't addressed to the world. Not to a university. Not to a medical journal. It was a letter to his wife, Margaret. His partner in life. And in science. And in that letter, I saw the words of a man who had lived a century. Not just longer, but wiser. He wrote, "The older I get, the more I realize. Health isn't built in hospitals. It's built in the kitchen. Each meal is a message to the heart. Each oil drop, a signal, to live or to decay. Let people argue about carbs, protein, or trends. I'll take olives." I sat down. Read it again. And again. I could almost hear his voice, gentle, wry, firm. Not shouting from a podium. Just whispering from the garden. It reminded me why I started all of this. Not to impress anyone. Not to chase perfection. But to reclaim dignity. To feel clear again. To age with choice, not just chance. Dr. Keys wasn't a guru. He didn't sell magic pills. He didn't promise youth. He just observed. Listened. Lived. He spent 40 years in that little Italian village. Watching old men walk without canes. Watching women cook with real food. Watching generations grow without fear of disease. And his observations? They weren't just pretty ideas. They inspired the Preventive trial, a landmark 2013 study. That showed a Mediterranean diet with EVOO could reduce major cardiovascular events by 30% in high-risk patients. That's not theory. That's real life. I printed that quote. "Health is built in the kitchen." And framed it above our dining table. I added it to the Facebook group banner. Because I wanted others to feel it, too. In the end, it's not about fear. Or rules. Or being perfect. It's about small rituals. Repeated. With care. So if you're still watching, wondering if it's too late to change, let me say this. It's not. Your next spoonful. Your next walk. Your next meal. It could be the beginning of something powerful. And if Dr. Keys were here today, I believe he'd say, "Don't wait for illness to teach you health." I'm back where this story began. Same chair. Same porch. Same cup of coffee. But something's different now. Not just in my numbers. Not just in my sleep. But in how I see this next chapter of life. 4 weeks ago, I felt like I was waiting. Waiting to get worse. Waiting for another medication. Waiting for the next scare. Now. I'm not waiting anymore. I'm walking. I'm tracking. I'm pouring oil with purpose. I'm not trying to live forever. I'm just trying to live well today. So if you've made it this far, maybe you're like me. Someone who ignored the small signs. Someone who thought healing had to be complicated. Someone who's ready to try, just one more time. You don't have to do everything. But you do have to do something. And maybe that something is just 1 tablespoon at a time. Start with what I started with. Our 30-day Mediterranean Start Tracker. 2 tablespoons of EVOO daily. A short walk every morning. 1 small note on how you feel each day. You'll find the full guide plus printable tracker in the video description. And you don't have to do it alone. We've built a community, Live Strong with Harold, where thousands of seniors are sharing, asking, and cheering each other on. It's free. It's private. And it might just be what keeps you going on day 3, or day 30. Check the pinned comment for the group link. And leave a comment, "I'm in," if you're joining the challenge. This isn't just a health tip. It's an invitation. To show up for yourself. To stop letting fear, or habit, run the next 10 years of your life. I'm Harold. I'm 76. And I've learned that healing doesn't just come from a clinic. Sometimes, it comes from a quiet decision. Like standing in your kitchen. Holding a spoon. And saying, "Let's try. We're just getting started." And I hope you'll walk with me.